Good evening and welcome to the Resource and Service Overview Scrutiny Committee for the 6th of September. In a while since I've been here, enjoyed last week. I think we'll just get straight on with it. Right, number one, apologies for absence and substitutes.
Thank you, Chairman. We've had apologies from Councillor Pam Morrison, and there is no substitute.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item number 2, minutes of the last meeting. Everybody happy with the minutes of the last meeting? Any mentions where amendment we need to put on there? No, we're all good. Okay, I'll get them signed later, but I need a mover and a seconder. Chris Amos, please move them, and the seconder, Councillor Skills. Thank you very much. Okay, as usual, I'd like to remind you to declare any interests. Have we got any in?
I'm also a town councillor, and if anything comes up about town councils, I will share an interest.
Thank you very much, Councillor Allen. Apologies if anybody was listening. I didn't realise I didn't have my mic on. Okay, moving on to number 4, questions on notice pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 38. We have one from Councillor Griffiths. Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I read the decision regarding the purchase of the new beach patrol equipment with interest. While reading the report, I was quite concerned to read Clacton and Frinton Beach Patrol Station quad bikes are beyond repair and no longer available to use. Why are we not replacing this equipment while it's still in working order? This would allow some resale value, and more importantly,
for the 6th of September,
would mean the beach patrol had funds.
In a while,
So we also clarify the lack of availability of
just get straight on
the beach patrols.
Apologies for absence and substitutes. Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. That was actually 2 questions, and procedure rule 38 only allows 1, but I do have the discretion, so I'll allow that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. We've had apologies from Councillor Pam
You're
Morrison.
absolutely right. So this is the answer that I've been provided from the Assistant Director of Leisure and Tourism. In the absence of the quad bikes at Clacton and Frinton Beach Patrol Station, please ensure that temporary measures were put in place to ensure that stations were still operating. Okay, ordering site number 2, minutes of the last meeting, where possible, and everybody happy with the minutes of the last meeting, help support mentions where of equipment. I can advise that the old quad bike will also stock with the Council's open space. Chris Amos, please move them, and a decision on what will be the next skills will be taken shortly. Subject as usual, and the officer would like to remind you to declare any interest include the option for trade-in or a direct sale.
I'm also
An update
a town councillor,
once the decision has been
and if
finalised.
anything comes up about town councils, I will
Happy with that?
share an interest.
Okay, so
The only thing I would
thank you very much, Councillor Allen. Apologies if anybody was listening. I didn't realise I didn't have my mic on.
equipment is
Okay, moving on to number 4, questions on notice pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 38.
before the
We have one from Councillor Griffiths. Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Because of Rule
I read the decision regarding the purchase of the new beach patrol equipment with interest. Perhaps we could look at that. While reading the report, I was quite concerned to read Clacton and Frinton Beach Patrol Station quad bikes are beyond repair and no longer available to
Number
use.
5, scrutiny of proposed decisions, page 13 and 14.
Why are we not replacing this equipment while it's still in working order? This would allow some resale value, and more importantly,
For the 6th of September,
would mean the beach patrol had funds. So we also clarify the lack of availability of
just get straight on
the beach patrols.
apologies for absence and substitutes. Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. That was actually 2 questions, and the procedure rule 38 only allows 1, but I do have the discretion, so I'll allow that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. We've had apologies from Councillor Pam Morrison.
So this is the answer that I've been provided from the Assistant Director of Leisure and Tourism. Sorry, yeah, I jumped one. In the absence of the quad bikes at Clacton and Frinton Beach Patrol Station, please ensure that such temporary measures were put in place to ensure the stations were still operating. Ordering site number 2, minutes, so we can review it further. Because we haven't actually got a report yet, and see if it needs to be brought back to the committee. Are we happy with that? And then the last meeting, council security, introduction, tenancy agreement, the council oversight, what will be next? Agenda item number 6, which is I will say the response from Councillor Tuttle on the 17th of July. Also, ask for it all to be forwarded to yourself. Once I've had that,
about town councils forward.
we've just
The only thing I would
more time and didn't give us a reply at the previous cabinet. So when that happens, we will update the recommendation. Any questions on that before we move on? Councillor Allen.
Yes,
Number 4,
summer. It's I know we've got loads of bins out. We've got the men working.
we have one from Councillor Bridges. Because of rules, I read the decision regarding the purchase of the new beach patrol equipment with interest. Perhaps we could look at that. Well, reading the report, I was quite concerned to read Clacton and Friston Beach Patrol Station, one box are beyond repair, but no longer available to use.
5.
Scrutiny
proposed decision, page 13 and 14.
The weekend, they did yesterday, they did a tremendous job. I think
Why are we not replacing this equipment while it's still in working areas?
All I hope is
This would allow some resale day for the 6th of September.
volunteers. I've noticed it with the gardens. We have loads
The beach patrol had
we still need staff.
That's the section that we're doing. It's called recommended monitoring report. So we're just monitoring what we've already done.
Assistant Director of Tourism.
Sorry, yeah, wait up.
Okay, so temporary measures are now in place to ensure the station will still operate.
So we can review it further. Because we haven't actually got a report yet, and see if it needs to be brought back to the committee.
Yeah, thank you. It's just
And then
there's
security.
response from the Environment and Public Space portfolio holder will be submitted to the next meeting of the cabinet.
I will show the response from didn't give a reply.
And so that will come back. You'll get notification of that at your November meeting.
Okay. Everybody else? Previous cabinet. So when that happens, we will number 7, taking forward the overview of scrutiny work programme. And this is some of the proposed memberships on the table.
Any questions on that before we move on?
For each of you.
Yes,
And so while I'm just raising this is some work that's been done. Around beach huts, cybersecurity, planning enforcement,
I know
and
we've
customer
got loads.
service. And we had several meetings. One is we initiated this with
The
the
bins out. We've got the
committee
bin
who put
working.
themselves forward to various on the workshops. And then we go task group had more than 5 people on it.
Scrutiny
I'd like to thank people
13-14.
who put themselves forward
weekend,
that weren't
sorry,
able
they
to be
did,
put on all of the task
yesterday.
groups that
They did a tremendous
liked.
job. I
I
think
think
we
Why
may
are
as
we
well
not
make
replacing this equipment while it's still in
it.
work?
but some people
All
didn't
I
get
hope
all the
is
ones.
This would allow
we're not
some reason
What I'm
that
looking for now is
from the six of September.
with what was being planned. I'll take any That's the section that is called recommended monitoring report. So we're just monitoring what we've already done.
My 2023 that I think I'm going to be the champion, not the campion.
You almost definitely.
Absolutely, but you know.
So we can review it further.
He's got his
We
work
haven't
now.
actually got a report yet, and see if it needs to be brought back to the minutes. Okay. So everybody else, number 8. So when that happens, we'll number 7 taking forward. And this is summary of proposed memberships
21,
in the table
22, 31 to
planning
40.
enforcement.
And the first thing I'm going to have to do is,
And we had several
say
meetings.
that we've received an
One is
apology
we
for an
initiate this
admin
with
error
the
in reference to a
committee.
Conversation around it. I want to check whether they feel they need more time to people on it. I'd like to thank people
Mr. Chairman,
who put themselves
I
forward
like
that weren't able to be put on all
even
the
with
task
my
groups
sort
that
of
they did a
interest,
tremendous
reading that
job.
lot in 10 minutes is not really deal. And to actually look at this properly, you need to be able to sit down and study it in great detail, rather than scan it 10 minutes before the meeting starts. And my view would be that Francis hasn't enough time to look at this. I don't see any problems when you've got sort of this sort of number of pages to try and read in 10 minutes. It's far too much information. I think we need to have another meeting when we've had time to actually study it.
You almost definitely.
Thank you, Councillor Bruce. Anybody else? So, is everybody in agreement that we have Right, so my proposal is that we have another meeting, special meeting, which is in our remit, that we just make this a singular item for that meeting. And we will take it from there. But being as we have Mr. Barrett, anybody's got any questions, they're asking to do a quick presentation anyway, and then if you've got any question around it, for him, it's going to take away they feel they need more time to people.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you for that. It's fast-paced and financial is moving quite quickly, and even this report is July. What's happened since then is significant in terms of the impact on the council, which we need to digest, and that's going to come back to the committee anyway. So all of the issues in this report will have to be reviewed as part of looking forward as well to see are those issues going to continue and how do we integrate those. So that's just a quick point there. But I mean, the good news is the council was favourable. We weren't in the so we did enjoy a small fair. Disappointing, Mark, not going to advanced work, but there was surprises. Right, so as you know, we
that's in our remits that we
the idea is to make this a single line so we want to make sure that what we know about the Financial Council, we can actually report that to the Council of Work and react to what we're facing both internally and externally. As we went through the outturn position, which is also very involved in it, as you know, there were some surprises that are appendices that form this report. So appendices. Appendix A is the key one because it kind of tries to isolate those significant items. I think it's worth saying that we don't want a repeat of that in this year, and I think the report does introduce some strong sort of response to that, and it does refer to a meeting that has been implemented and is chaired by the Chief Executive, where we will be talking to senior officers across the council. It's a budget performance and delivery review meeting that the Chief Executive will chair to make sure that we get a feel for those challenges that we face financially, because surprises don't help anyone when you're sort of in all walks of life, and certainly not in the financial side of it with the world we're faced with at the moment. So positive in as much that we didn't have a deficit. It was a small favourable position. But clearly those overspends at the end of the year in certain areas, some were mitigated. They have a knock-on impact because it just clips your wings in terms of the ability you've got to respond to other things as they come forward. So that was just that kind of first sort of part of the report that kind of picked up on that. Hopefully, though, in terms of the reference to the reports that you would have quarterly, hopefully this just repeats what I've already told you what was happening and gives you a kind of a year-end position that you've been told all year. So that's what this report hopefully includes, quite a bit of that as well. Quite a lot of recommendations involved in that as well. There are some allocations. We've still got the COVID money that we're working through, and there's two chunks of COVID money, to support money. It's one where it was quite specifically targeted by the government, and any money that we don't spend is returnable. And the other part was like a new burdens part, which was the commitment made by was that would be used to help the district recover from the pandemic. And those decisions are still to be made. So the appendices set out those figures. It also has some allocations in there, but it does say that actually we'll come back. Members will have a report in front of them to allocate that as we go forward. I think the other important thing to raise in the report is that the position that this presents, the position that we're working through at the moment in terms of forecasting, means that it has a big impact on the corporate investment plan, because actually when you've got the position that we're reporting in outturn, when we're looking ahead to the position, the challenges we're facing financially, which will be in front of members shortly, it does, put into stark context the ability to invest and spend money and allocate funding to the corporate investment plan. So this report also says that in light of the outturn, in light of the challenges, the corporate investment plan hasn't come forward yet in another iteration, but again, that will come forward shortly. So those things are now just very, very closely aligned, because actually, with the challenges we face, it does mean that there's some difficult choices, I think, to the required as we go forward. So that's a kind of an overview there. In terms of on the general fund side, in terms of the HRA, again, hopefully HRA was a little bit more in line with what we've been reporting all year, because we talked about void levels, we talked about rent, we talked about council tax on empty properties. So the outturn report really was the final position that took into account those things. So there's no surprises as much in terms of the HRA. So, but as you say, there's plenty of numbers in this report, and there's plenty of appendices. But the good thing is, everything really in this report does need to be kind of picked up, put through the sausage machine in terms of the forecast we're working on now, because we've got to address all of these issues because as I said, when an issue arises at the end of 21-22, the first question is, was it a one-off? Is it going to continue? If it's going to continue, what impact it's going to have on a council's financial position? So we need to understand that, and we are working with services to have a kind of a real clear position on all those items that appeared. So those, and you will see those again anyway, naturally. Subject, I know you're going to have a separate meeting, but also you'll see those again as we need to make sure that they're dealt with, because we've got to satisfy ourselves. If there's an issue, we're not going to fund it. We've got to be satisfied that we've dealt with it and it's mitigated, and it won't bite us on the backside as we move into 23-24. So we do need to make sure we address all those issues. So that was a very quick summary. Hopefully it gives a context, but appreciate that. That happy to take a load of questions later.
Okay, so based on what we've just discussed, the idea is that I'm going to set a meeting tomorrow with Mr. Simmons, and I'll send that around to everybody along with the necessary paperwork, and all questions will actually go through me once you've read this. But if there are any questions that we can take, I wasn't going to look for answers, but perhaps Councillor Griffiths.
Inquiry, Mr. Chairman. Given that any financial planning that you did prior to February of this year has probably now gone straight out of the window, and the fact you're looking at an inflationary cost that could be up, some are projecting up to 20% plus, this must make any financial projections, even towards the end of the year, incredibly difficult. And if you're looking at the start of the next financial year, virtually impossible. So, I mean, I know this is a very difficult question, but in general, how is the council managing its financial risk, bearing in mind that the situation is changing on a weekly and probably monthly basis? We've absolutely no idea what's going on in the next financial year, and in a sense, you must be working in the dark. So how are we actually trying to maintain any financial planning with that lot? Because you must be facing a very, very difficult task.
Right, thank you. I mean, I don't know if you're expecting an answer there, Chris, Councillor Griffiths.
A sort of an overview of if something goes drastically wrong, for example, in the money market, how we're picking it up, or is it picked up quarterly, or...
Yeah, the problem I've got here is that, I don't want to open the floodgates to loads of questions, so if I get your one answered, then as the rest of the committee then going to sit there and ask their questions and expect answers on that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get answers for you, and then we'll also have that meeting. You can raise that question again, and we'll get an answer there.
So given the vast breadth of area that you're looking at there, it's not something, well, I'd be very amazed if Richard could have come back with that on the night, but I thought it's always worth checking, bearing in mind that when you're looking at the financial stability of the council, there must be mechanisms in there to try and sort of overcome these things, but God knows how you do it.
Thank you, Chris. I mean, officers have picked that up. So generally questions that you were going to ask, or anything else that you might think you'll want to ask, or I can do a few if you want. So Councillor Barry.
I'm just picking up on what Councillor Griffiths has just raised, which is the current volatility of pretty much all the market, particularly the energy market. And I'm just wondering, what contingency planning we are doing or undertaking as a council in respect of those costs, and whether we could ask questions about that, because looking at these all these figures, they are historical, and there's obviously some projections. But I always think we're asking questions after the event. If you are going to come to our next meeting, would it be within your remit to perhaps give us some insight and understanding of how developments might affect the council going forward, because it's obviously going to affect business rates. It's going to affect every aspect of the council operation, and I'm assuming that we have got some contingency planning and awareness about what we're going to do, and that to me is more important to actually deal with now rather than in 3 months' time to catch up. Because we all seem to be, even looking at the figures, I agree with Councillor Griffiths, there's a lot there. And whilst I don't understand every line of it, there are some headline figures that keep popping up and that we do understand and that you do explain very well. But it's only after the event. I'm just wondering now, looking ahead to the winter in particular and beyond, where we stand as a council in terms of keeping ourselves afloat, heating our swimming pools, heating our buildings, etc. So perhaps you could take that on board and give us some insight into that. If we're having a meeting in a month's time, isn't it, or something like that? Well, maybe there'll be a clearer national economic picture, and that will be fed down to us in local government. But maybe you could take that on board.
Thank you, Mick. Councillor Amos, you put your hand up.
Yeah, now we've got a new Prime Minister in charge. She was talking about giving support to councils. Do you expect us to get a bit of a windfall from her to help with the problems, or?
Thank you for that, Chris. Sorry, Councillor Amos. I think we might have a clearer picture when we get to the meeting in October about exactly what's coming forward, so that might be a bit easier to answer than right now. My own questions, I'm looking for you to explain zero-based budgeting. I'm looking to understand why you've given £10.5 million worth of COVID money back. I want a bit more in-depth explanation as to what's really happening with the corporate investment plan. I want to understand whether we have, because I couldn't find it, and maybe it's just my internet skills, but I haven't seen an external sign-off for our accounts from the audit company. And we talk about doing the 21-22, and I can't find the 2021. And I think I'll leave the rest just to an email. So I've got a few more bits and pieces here. But what I think I'll do is I'll take some, once we've all read this, if everybody comes to me, I will compile a list of questions. And when we have the meeting, Richard would be forewarned about what we might be asking, including what was just been brought up tonight. Has anybody got anything else they want to say? Councillor Allen.
Yes, my concern was the return of COVID money. Is it because we've not advertised it enough, or is it down to us that it's not happened, or people just not claiming it? Or is there some things that we should be doing that we haven't done?
We all done? Okay, so I'm going to draw that agenda item to a close. I'll reschedule another meeting. You'll all be made aware of it tomorrow once I've sorted it out with the officers. In the meantime, if you could read it, and then come with your questions for me. And on that basis, I'm now going to close the meeting. Thank you very much for all attending. I think that's one of our quickest ones. Thank you.